So I think the first foundational thing to kind of cover in terms of the labor market analysis is that we do have a growing green economy. And we have a growing green economy both internationally and in North America, in Canada, and even locally. And that's what the data shows. So an example of that is the American Solar Energy Society estimates that the renewable energy sector will support 37 million jobs in the US by 2030. And it's an increase from 9 million jobs currently in the sector in 2007. It's also estimated that direct employment in the solar power sector in Canada grew at 31% between 2001 and 2007. So we're seeing some pretty significant growth. We also saw some of that growth locally. So we were able to break down some of the businesses and industries in Calgary by whether or not they were green, possibly green, or not green. And the green industries actually showed pretty significant growth over the last few years. It was 3.1% growth, but of even more important to note is that during the recession, it was actually the least impacted. So during the recessionary period, it was 0.8% growth in the number of green businesses, comparing that to negative 4.6 growth in the not green industries. And you'll see a bit more about how we classified green industries versus possibly green and not green, but the main classification was based on a landmark study of green-collar jobs in California. Similarly, in terms of estimated employment, there was quite significant growth in green industry employment. There was a 4.3% growth from 2004 to 2008, and that compares to not green industries at 0.9% growth during that same period. And also similarly, there was less of an impact during the recession in terms of employment in green industries. So potentially, they're more resilient industries or more resilient jobs. Granted, though, that they're much smaller in scale than the not green industries. So you can see it's an entirely different scale. So that's something just as a caveat. Another key indicator of the growth of the green economy is in construction practices. So the emergence of leadership in energy and environmental design, so that's LEED, in terms of the level of LEED projects in Canada, as well as the level of LEED certified professionals, is pretty astronomical. You can see by both those charts. So on the left is the number of LEED projects. It went from 50 LEED projects in the country in 2004 to over 1,700 in 2009. So a huge increase. And you'll hear a bit more about energy efficient construction practices from a residential home perspective from Ryan, who is with Avalon. So now specific to the green economy to green collar jobs. So this is a little bit of the highlight of our methodology. So the quality didn't turn out great on the PowerPoint, but I just wanted to highlight that in the green industries, so those are some of the industries examples there, urban transit, bicycle repair, solar panel would be one. There's approximately 8,000 workers currently in Calgary in that industry. So that refers back to that chart I showed earlier. In the possibly green industries, those have the potential to create green collar jobs, but they're not necessarily green collar jobs. So based on the Stats Canada, we can't be sure whether or not they are green collar jobs. So an example of that would be trades in residential building construction. If the trade is focused on energy efficiency building construction, then it could be considered a green collar job. If it's more of a standard trade, it wouldn't necessarily be a green collar job. So we were able to use Statistics Canada labor force survey stats to determine the size of the green industry, as well as the general blue-collar occupations, which go across all of those green, possibly green, and other industries. So we were able to use the labor force data for that. But to really find out about the jobs in the possibly green industries, we had to use key informant interviews. And so we did a number of key informant interviews across 6 primary sectors, and that was the construction sector, renewable energy, environmental remediation, recycling, green manufacturing, and sustainable landscaping. So I'll just provide an overview of some of the key highlights from those sectors. So I'm just going to talk about green construction, renewable energy, and environmental remediation. So for green construction, what we really saw in green construction is that there's new skills required for almost all positions, including entry-level trade positions, new green skills. So that's an example in the green construction area of where it's not a new position, but it's transforming of traditional positions, that they are requiring more and more green skills. So you can see the quote from Donna Moore, who's the executive officer of the Canadian Home Builders Association here in Calgary. All blue-collar construction jobs are going to have a green aspect to them going forward. And there's also significant demand in the trades area, and I just wanted to highlight this. The demographic shift is even more pronounced for the trades occupations than other occupations. So in the trades occupations, you can see it's an older workforce compared to other occupations, and there's an estimate that between 400 and 550 current trade workers will reach the age of 65 each year by 2020. So we're starting to see those trades leaving, and we need to be able to fill them and fill them with workers with new skill sets. So in terms of green construction, one specific green-collar job, potential green-collar job that I wanted to highlight is specialized training for insulation and siding. And this shows the potential pathway as well. So the reason why insulation and siding, and Ryan could speak to this with a lot more expertise than I can, is that it's critical. Those two factors are critical for the energy efficiency of a building. So the proper installation of both the siding, the building wrap, and the insulation, and ensuring that it's moisture-free is what is very critical to that building being energy efficient. And those workers need to understand both the how and the why of doing their work. And there are potential jobs in that field, and they're entry level, and they pay a living wage. And not only that, but they do allow for some career track progression. So once someone does well, say installing insulation, they could move on to a blower door tester because they're starting to understand the energy efficiency of a building. Then they could move to an energy auditor and up into more of a site manager role where they're responsible for the quality assurance of the entire building. So that's one example of a potential green-collar job pathway. In terms of renewable energy, the renewable energy industry in Canada has experienced double-digit growth over the last decade. However, the caveat with the renewable energy sector is it grew from very small to small. So it's still very, very small sector. The trades positions, though, are positioned to have the largest growth. So in 2006, there's 190 employees that are trades within the Canadian wind industry. That's expected to grow by 2011 to 1,300. So that's a 47% increase. So that's the largest increase of any occupations within the wind industry. And as the new positions are created, there's then the need for training. And so right now, there's a training program at Lethbridge College for a wind turbine technician. But as I said before, there's very limited employment opportunities. Right now, there's about 50 people in Alberta that work as wind turbine technicians, and that's expected to grow only to about 85 employees over the next 5 years. So very small growth. In terms of solar panel renewable energy, we're also seeing something very similar with to the wind power. Is it's increasing. There are increasing jobs. So, for example, there's over 1,300 workers in Canada in the solar panel industry in 2007, and that's compared to only 271 in 2001. So significant growth, but still very small in scale. And the primary potential jobs in solar panel installation are specialized roofers or people with HVAC and electrician trades, because there's a pretty rampant problem based on what we heard from the industry of improper installation of solar panels. So there is a need for training. There's just not a lot of huge amount of employment there. So environmental remediation is the third sector I just want to highlight. And this is unique, environmental remediation, because it's very linked to our oil and gas industry in Alberta. So environmental remediation has had significant growth. It grew from 400 workers, you can see, in the mid-90s or the late 90s to over 2,000 in 2006. So it is a growing industry, huge growth. And there are entry-level positions, and they do pay quite well. So an entry-level position, for example, is an equipment operator. And as someone gains more skills in environmental remediation, they can move on to becoming technicians and do things such as core sampling of the ground. So it is a unique workforce development initiative or potential initiative because of our oil and gas industry here.